You think you're being logical, but what if it's just fear? Most people don't overthink because they're smart. They overthink because they're afraid to act. Oral once stood still, staring at his reflection. Not because he didn't know what to do, but because he was afraid to move. The Stoics knew this truth. Clarity comes from action, not endless thought. Subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers. Watch the full story below.